Part 1. First contact, gone wrong. The warning klaxons aboard the mining vessel. New horizon cut through the steady hum of the engines like a knife through silence. Commander Jake Morrison rushed from his quarters to the bridge, his boots echoing in the narrow corridors of the industrial ship. After 18 months in deep space, the crew had grown accustomed to the predictable routine of asteroid mining in the outer Kepler system. Nothing had prepared them for this moment. "Report?" Jake called out as he stepped onto the bridge. The command center was cramped compared to military vessels, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Banks of monitors displayed mining data or processing statistics and navigation charts. But now, every screen showed the same impossible sight. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her engineering station, her face pale. "Commander, we've got a massive energy signature approaching fast. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything in our databases." Jake moved to the main display, watching as the object resolved into something that defied logic. The alien ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of their mining vessel. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly blue-green metal that seemed to pulse with internal light. Geometric patterns covered its surface, creating designs that hurt to look at directly. "How did it get so close without our sensors detecting it?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "I don't know, sir," replied Petty Officer Steve Carter from the sensor station. "It just appeared on our screens 30 seconds ago. No approach vector, no engine signatures, nothing." The communications array crackled to life, filling the bridge. It sounds unlike anything the human crew had ever heard. High-pitched tones mixed with deep, resonant notes that seemed to vibrate through their bones. Then suddenly the sounds transformed into recognizable words. "Primitive vessel, you will prepare for boarding. Do not attempt to flee or resist. Your technology is insufficient to escape our interest." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Amy's hand hovered over the emergency beacon controls, but they all knew help was weeks away at best. The mining ship carried minimal weapons, designed only for breaking apart asteroids. Against a ship of this size and unknown capability, resistance seemed pointless. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon," he responded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded ships for 15 years. "We are on a peaceful mining mission. State your intentions." The response came with what sounded almost like amusement. "Your compliance is noted, Primitive One. We are representatives of the Galactic Coalition. Your species has achieved basic space travel, making you eligible for evaluation. Prepare for our arrival." Within minutes, the alien ship had maneuvered alongside the New Horizon with impossible precision. Jake watched through the viewport as sections of the alien hull opened like flower petals, revealing a docking tube that extended toward their ship. The technology was clearly far beyond human capabilities, moving with fluid grace that made their own mechanical systems look clumsy in comparison. The docking procedure completed without any input from the human crew. Jake felt the ship shudder slightly as the alien vessel locked onto their hull. He turned to his crew, 37 men and women who had signed up for a routine mining operation and now found themselves at humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. "Everyone stay calm," Jake said, his command voice steady and reassuring. "We follow standard protocols. Be respectful, answer questions honestly, but don't volunteer information about Earth's location or our capabilities." Amy stepped closer to the commander. "Sir, should I activate the emergency protocols?" Jake considered this carefully. The emergency protocols would send an automated distress signal to Earth and activate certain defensive measures. But if these aliens truly were as advanced as they appeared, such actions might be seen as hostile. "Not yet," he decided. "Let's see what they want first." The airlock cycled, and the first aliens stepped aboard the New Horizon. Jake had tried to prepare himself for this moment, but seeing them in person was still shocking. The beings were tall, nearly 8 feet in height, with blue-tinged skin that had an almost crystalline quality. Their heads were elongated, with large eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Most striking were the crystal-like implants that dotted their bodies, pulsing with soft light and rhythm with their movements. The lead alien approached Jake with movements that were both graceful and somehow mechanical. When it spoke, its voice came not from its mouth, but from a device on its chest, translating its thoughts into human language. "I am Captain Vextorian of the Zephyrian Fleet," the being announced. "You are the leader of this primitive vessel?" "Aye." "Commander Jake Morrison," Jake replied, standing at attention. "Welcome aboard the New Horizon." Vextorian's large eyes swept across the bridge, taking in every detail of the human technology. The alien's expression, while difficult to read, seemed to convey a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely contained amusement. "Fascinating," Vextorian said, approaching the main control panel. "Your species still relies on physical interfaces and manual controls. How remarkably primitive." Other aliens had spread throughout the bridge, examining the human equipment with the enthusiasm of archaeologists studying ancient artifacts. One of them, smaller than the others and covered in more crystal implants, ran a strange device over the navigation console. "Captain," the smaller alien reported, "their computer systems process information at speeds we achieved 8 centuries ago, and these propulsion systems barely achieve .01 light speed. Remarkable that they've managed to travel between star systems at all." Jake felt his crew tense around him. Amy's face had gone red with suppressed anger while Steve clenched, his fists at his sides. The alien's condescending tone was unmistakable, even through their translation devices. "Your weapon systems," another alien observed, examining the mining laser controls, "are projectile-based. Energy weapons appear to be beyond your current understanding. This is truly a primitive species." Vextorian approached a storage panel and ran his scanning device over it. "These materials, basic metal alloys and synthetic compounds. Your manufacturing processes are centuries behind current galactic standards." "Sir," Amy whispered to Jake, "they're not even looking at the right systems." Jake gave her a subtle warning look. The aliens continued their examination, completely missing the fact that what they were seeing represented only the most basic backup systems of the mining vessel. The real technology lay dormant, hidden beneath layers of deliberate camouflage that had been standard human practice for centuries. "This survey is complete," Vextorian announced after an hour of examination. "Your species shows the typical characteristics of a primitive civilization. Chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, and crude fusion reactors. You will be classified accordingly." As the aliens prepared to leave, Vextorian turned back to Jake. "Commander Morrison, your species may be contacted again in the future. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have achieved more advanced capabilities, you will be eligible for membership in galactic civilization." Jake simply nodded, maintaining his neutral expression. "We appreciate your evaluation, Captain Vextorian." After the aliens departed, the bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the engines. Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same mixture of relief and frustration on their faces that he felt in his own chest. "Amy," he said quietly, "send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to initiate Protocol 7 immediately." Amy's eyes widened in understanding. Protocol 7 was reserved for the most sensitive situations when humanity's true capabilities had to be hidden at all costs. As the alien ship disappeared into the void, Jake stared out at the stars and wondered how long humanity could maintain their carefully constructed facade of primitive technology. The galaxy had just made a very dangerous assumption about Earth's capabilities. They had no idea what they had really encountered. Part 2. The Galactic Council's Assessment. The massive space station Nexus Prime hung in the void like a metallic flower, its countless arms and towers stretching out for kilometers in every direction. This architectural marvel served as the heart of galactic civilization, where representatives from dozens of advanced species gathered to make decisions that affected billions of lives. Across hundreds of star systems, 3 weeks had passed since Captain Vextorian's encounter with the human mining vessel, and now the Galactic Council convened in its grandest chamber to discuss the newest species to stumble into their territory. The chamber itself was a testament to advanced engineering. a sphere nearly a kilometer in diameter with artificial gravity that allowed delegates to sit on any surface as if it were the floor. Ambassador Keflara of the Andromedan Collective glided to the central speaking platform, her silver robes flowing around her tall, graceful form. The Andromedans were among the oldest species in the galaxy, having achieved interstellar travel over 3,000 years ago. Their wisdom and experience made them natural leaders in the council, and when Keflara spoke, others listened. Honored delegates, she began, her melodious voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. We gather today to discuss the most recent contact with a primitive species. The beings who call themselves humans have been encountered in the Outer Rim territories. A holographic display materialized above the platform, showing detailed scans of the New Horizon and its crew. The three-dimensional images rotated slowly, allowing the assembled delegates to examine every aspect of human technology and biology. As you can observe, Keflara continued, these humans possess technology roughly equivalent to our ancestors from 2 millennia ago. Their propulsion systems rely on crude chemical reactions and basic fusion processes. Their computing capabilities are laughably primitive, using what they term quantum processors that operate at speeds we surpassed 8 centuries past. Soft laughter rippled through the chamber. Counselor Mordeth of the Silicon Confederacy, whose crystalline body sparkled with internal light, raised a hand to speak. The Silicon Confederacy was known throughout the galaxy for their mastery of information technology, having evolved from artificial intelligence themselves. If I may add, Mordeth said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, their data processing methods are particularly amusing. They still use physical storage devices and linear processing algorithms. My species abandoned such crude methods when we first achieved sentience over 1,000 years ago. The holographic display shifted to show detailed scans of the human ship's interior. Every delegate could see the primitive control panels, the basic metal construction, and the simple energy systems that powered the vessel. Fleet Admiral Vexver of the Draconian Empire stood next, his massive reptilian form commanding attention from all present. The Draconians had built their civilization on conquest and military might, and their assessment of any new species always focused on potential threats. From a military standpoint, Vexver growled, his voice deep and menacing, these humans pose no threat whatsoever. Their weapons are projectilized, firing small metal objects at velocities that would barely scratch our defensive systems. They show no understanding of energy weapons, plasma technology, or defensive shielding. The display changed again, this time showing the mining lasers that the aliens had mistaken for weapons. To the advanced civilizations in the chamber, these tools looked like toys from their distant past. Their starships, Vexver continued, are constructed from basic metal alloys with no apparent armor plating or defensive capabilities. A single shot from our weakest patrol craft could destroy their largest vessel. Dr. Zenthiara of the Cerebral Collective, a being whose enlarged brain dominated her tiny body, floated forward in her mobility chair. The Cerebrals were the galaxy's foremost scientists and philosophers, having devoted their entire evolution to the pursuit of knowledge. What interests me most, Dr. Zenthiara said in her high, precise voice, is their apparent lack of understanding regarding the fundamental forces of the universe. They show no evidence of gravitational manipulation, dimensional folding, or temporal mechanics. They appear to be trapped in what we might call classical physics thinking. The assembled delegates nodded in agreement. It was always sad when they encountered a species that had hit such obvious developmental walls. Meanwhile, light years away on Earth, Dr. Lisa Campbell sat in her underground laboratory deep beneath the Colorado mountains. The 45-year-old physicist had dedicated her life to humanity's most classified research projects, and the intercepted transmissions from the Galactic Council made her blood run cold. She adjusted her glasses and reviewed the data streaming across her multiple monitors. Every word from the Alien Council meeting was being recorded and analyzed by Earth's most advanced artificial intelligence systems, What she saw confirmed her worst fears. "Director Bennett," she called to her superior, who was studying similar data at a nearby workstation. "We have a serious problem." Director Paul Bennett, a veteran of 30 years in Earth secret defense programs, looked up from his screens. His weathered face showed the strain of maintaining humanity's greatest secret for decades. "They've completely misunderstood what they encountered," Lisa continued, her voice tight with concern. "The Zephyrians examined a civilian mining vessel and assumed they were seeing our best technology." Paul nodded grimly. Protocol 7 was designed for exactly this scenario. The question is whether Commander Morrison and his crew can maintain the deception. Back on Nexus Prime, the council meeting continued with various species sharing their own encounters with primitive civilizations. Each delegate seemed eager to demonstrate their superiority over the backwards humans. Representative Quillinox of the Hive Collective buzzed excitedly as she spoke. The insectoid beings had achieved perfect unity of thought across their entire species, making them incredibly efficient at large-scale projects. "Our preliminary analysis suggests these humans have not even achieved basic hive mind communication," she announced, her antennae twitching with amusement. "They appear to rely on crude verbal and electronic communication methods. Each individual operates as a separate entity with no collective consciousness whatsoever." The chamber erupted in polite laughter again. The idea of a species functioning without shared consciousness seemed absurd to most of the advanced civilizations present. Ambassador Velteren of the Energy Beings shimmered as he spoke, his form constantly shifting between solid and pure energy. Perhaps most telling is their reliance on matter-based existence. They show no evidence of energy transcendence or the ability to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Dr. Campbell frantically took notes as each species revealed their assumptions about humanity. The aliens were building a profile of Earth based on 700-year-old technology from a civilian mining ship. They had no idea that what they had encountered was actually backup systems, maintained specifically because they were reliable and simple to repair in deep space. "Director," she said urgently, "they're categorizing us as a pre-contact civilization. That means they'll likely ignore us for several centuries while we develop naturally." Paul smiled grimly. "That might actually work in our favor. The longer they underestimate us, the better prepared we'll be when full contact becomes inevitable." Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Kethlara was concluding the assessment. "Based on all available evidence, I recommend we classify the human species as Level 3 primitives. They may be suitable for limited contact and eventual membership in the galactic community, but only after they achieve significant technological advancement." The vote was unanimous. The humans were officially classified as a primitive species, centuries away from being ready for true galactic civilization. As the council session ended and delegates began to disperse, none of them suspected that they had just made the most dangerous mistake in galactic history. They had encountered humanity's carefully maintained facade and mistaken it for reality. On Earth, Dr. Campbell began composing an urgent message to Commander Morrison. The deception had worked perfectly, but now the real challenge would begin. Humanity would need to maintain this illusion of primitive technology while secretly preparing for what was to come. The galaxy had made its assessment of human capabilities. Soon, they would learn just how wrong they were. Part 3. The Revelation. The encrypted transmission from Earth reached the New Horizon exactly 43 hours after the Galactic Council's meeting. Commander Jake Morrison sat alone in his quarters, reading Dr. Campbell's message for the third time. The words on his private terminal screen carried implications that made his hands shake slightly. Priority Alpha 7 transmission received. Maintain technological masquerade at all costs. Recommend standard Protocol 7 implementation. Council assessment confirms complete deception success. Earth Command authorizes full operational security measures. Jake leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling of his small cabin. Protocol 7 was something every deep space commander knew about, but hoped never to use. It meant that humanity's carefully guarded secret was now more important than ever. The aliens had fallen completely for their deception. He activated his secure communicator and called Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez to his quarters. When she arrived, her expression showed she already suspected something significant was happening. Amy, close the door and activate privacy mode, Jake said quietly. She sealed the cabin and pressed a hidden panel that would prevent any electronic surveillance. The mining ship carried more secrets than its crew had initially realized. Sir, the aliens are still monitoring us, aren't they? Amy asked, taking a seat across from his small desk. They are, Jake confirmed. But that's not why I called you here. Amy, I need to ask you something important. What's your real security clearance level? Amy's eyes widened slightly. Sir, I'm not sure what you mean. Your personnel file says. You're a standard engineering lieutenant, Jake continued, watching her carefully. But some of the systems on this ship require clearance levels that don't officially exist. Systems that you've been maintaining perfectly for 18 months. Amy was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she spoke. Level 12, sir? Deep black classification, Jake nodded. He had suspected as much. Then you know what we're really dealing with here. The backup systems, Amy said simply. They think our 700-year-old technology is our current capability. Exactly. And Earth Command wants us to maintain that illusion. Jake pulled up a schematic on his personal tablet, one that showed the New Horizons' true design. Show me what they missed. Amy moved to the tablet and began pointing to various sections of the ship's blueprint. Well, they completely ignored the quantum fold drive assembly. It's been dormant since we left Earth orbit, but it's right there in Engineering Bay 3. They walked past it 6 times. She highlighted another section. The nanomolecular processors that run our real computer systems. They're built into the hull plating itself. The aliens were looking at our backup terminals and thinking they were our primary systems. Jake studied the schematics with growing amazement. Even he hadn't realized how thoroughly the aliens had misunderstood what they were seeing. What about the defensive systems? That's the really incredible part, Amy said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. They examined our mining lasers and thought they were weapons. They have no idea that every plate of this ship's hull can generate plasma fields strong enough to vaporize an asteroid. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. The Zephyrians had studied a human vessel for hours and completely failed to recognize technology that was centuries beyond their own understanding. They had seen what they expected to see, a primitive species using basic tools. Amy, I need you to run a full diagnostic on all our dormant systems, but do it quietly. If the aliens are still monitoring us, we can't let them discover their mistake. Amy nodded and left to begin her work. Jake remained in his quarters, composing a detailed report for Earth Command. As he typed, he began to understand the full scope of what had happened. The New Horizon wasn't even a military vessel. It was a civilian mining ship, crewed mostly by university students and recent graduates gaining experience in deep space operations. The primitive technology the aliens had cataloged was actually backup systems, maintained for reliability rather than performance. Real human technology had been hidden for so long that even some humans forgot how advanced they really were. The quantum fold drives that could move ships across the galaxy in minutes. The molecular assemblers that could create any material from base elements. The artificial intelligence systems that had achieved consciousness centuries ago, but chose to work alongside humans rather than replace them. Down in Engineering Bay 3, Amy was discovering just how thoroughly the aliens had been fooled. She activated her security codes and watched as panels throughout the bay slid aside, revealing the ship's true systems. The quantum fold drive sat dormant in its housing, a piece of technology so advanced that it manipulated spacetime itself to achieve instantaneous travel. The aliens had walked directly past it, apparently mistaking it for some kind of storage container. The nanomolecular processors were even more impressive. Woven into the very structure of the ship, they could process information at speeds approaching theoretical maximums while simultaneously repairing and improving the vessel's systems. To the aliens, they had been invisible. Amy activated her diagnostic tablet and began running system checks. Every major component reported ready status. The plasma field generators could create defensive shields that would make the ship effectively invulnerable to any weapon the Galactic Council possessed. The quantum communications array could maintain instantaneous contact with Earth across any distance. Most impressive of all were the manufacturing systems. Hidden beneath the mining equipment, the ship carried molecular assemblers capable of creating virtually anything from raw materials. Food, tools, weapons, even other ships could be produced given enough time and resources. As Amy worked, she began to understand why Protocol 7 existed. If the Galactic Council knew what humans were really capable of, the entire balance of galactic civilization would shift overnight. Humanity wasn't a primitive species struggling to achieve basic spaceflight. They were the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy, deliberately hiding their capabilities behind carefully maintained facades. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message from Petty Officer Steve Carter on the bridge. "Lieutenant, we're getting some strange energy readings from the alien ship. You might want to take a look." Amy made her way to the bridge, where Steve was studying his sensor displays with obvious confusion. "What are you seeing?" she asked. "Well, that's just it," Steve replied. "According to our sensors, the Zephyrian ship is using technology that's actually less advanced than what we have in our backup systems. Their plasma conduits are crude, their computer cores are slow, and their power generation is inefficient." Stared at the readings, a chill running down her spine. "Steve, what clearance level do you have?" "Level 8, he answered. Why? She realized that even Steve didn't fully understand what he was seeing. The aliens weren't just primitive compared to humanity's hidden technology. They were primitive compared to the 700-year-old backup systems they had been examining. Amy activated her secure communicator and contacted Commander Morrison immediately. "Sir, you need to get down here right away. We have a much bigger problem than we thought." When Jake arrived in engineering, Amy showed him the diagnostic results. The truth was staggering. The Galactic Council, with all their supposed advancement, was using technology that humanity had surpassed centuries ago. "Commander," Amy said quietly, "if these are the most advanced species in the galaxy, then we're not just hiding our current capabilities. We're probably the most advanced civilization that has ever existed." Jake stared at the data, understanding dawning on him. Humanity hadn't just achieved technological superiority. They had achieved it so completely that they were operating on an entirely different level than the rest of galactic civilization. The mining ship New Horizon, crewed by students and carrying 700-year-old backup technology, was still more advanced than the flagship of the Galactic Coalition's most elite fleet. Jake activated his secure communication link to Earth Command. This revelation would change everything about humanity's place in the galaxy. The question now was what they would do with this knowledge. Part 4. The test captain Vexthorian stood on the bridge of his flagship Dawn's Edge, feeling completely satisfied with his assessment of the primitive human species. The sleek Zephyrian battlecruiser represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology. Equipped with the most advanced weapons and defensive systems the Coalition had ever developed, his confidence had grown over the past 2 days as his science teams analyzed the data from their encounter with the human mining vessel. Every scan confirmed what he had observed during his inspection. The humans were using technology that the Zephyrians had abandoned centuries ago. Chemical propulsion, kinetic weapons, and crude computer systems marked them as barely worthy of galactic attention. "Navigation Officer Kelther," Vexthorian called to his subordinate, "set course for the next patrol sector. We have seen enough of this primitive species." The crystalline implants on his forehead pulsed with satisfaction as he contemplated his report to the Galactic Council. Another backward civilization catalogued and dismissed. The humans would require at least 500 years of natural development before they could even begin to understand true galactic technology. His satisfaction lasted exactly 47 minutes. Science Officer Threndall Voice cracked with disbelief as she announced the impossible readings appearing on her instruments. Captain, I'm detecting an energy signature approaching from deep space. The readings they're not possible. Vexthorian moved to her station, his 8-foot frame casting a shadow over the glowing displays. What he saw made his crest feathers flatten against his skull in instinctive alarm. The energy pattern suggested a vessel moving at speeds that violated every law of physics the Zephyrians understood. Explain these readings, he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded coalition fleets for over 60 years. Sir, the signature indicates a ship traveling at near instantaneous velocity, Threndel replied, her fingers dancing over her instruments as she tried to make sense of the data. But there's no propulsion signature, no subspace distortion. No evidence of any drive system we recognize. Weapons Officer Morketh looked up from his tactical display, his face pale beneath his blue-tinted skin. Captain, whatever it is, it's heading directly for us. Estimated arrival in 37 minutes. Vexthorian felt the first stirrings of unease. In his long career, he had encountered dozens of species with various levels of technological development. But he had never seen anything that could move through space without leaving detectable engine signatures. Red alert, he ordered. All stations to battle readiness. Prepare defensive screens and charge primary weapons. The bridge of the Dawn's Edge transformed as combat protocols activated. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red, and the ship's powerful defensive systems hummed to life. Energy shields that could withstand the destruction of small planets formed around the battlecruiser's hull. 20 minutes later, the impossible happened. The human ship simply appeared in space before them, as if reality had folded itself to allow the vessel to step from one location to another. There was no flash of light, no energy discharge, no dramatic arrival. One moment empty space stretched before the Dawn's Edge, and the next moment a human ship hung motionless 3 kilometers away. Vexthorian stared at the vessel in growing horror. This was nothing like the crude mining ship his teams had examined. The human warship was sleek and predatory, its hull composed of materials that seemed to absorb and reflect light in ways that hurt to look at directly. Geometric patterns flowed across its surface like living things, and energy readings from the ship registered at levels that should have been impossible to contain. Sir, Threndel whispered, the energy output from that vessel is reading at over 10,000 times our maximum capacity. That's impossible. Nothing can generate that much power without destroying itself. The communications array activated, without any input from the Zephyrian crew. Somehow, the human ship had simply taken control of their systems. A voice spoke in perfect Zephyrian, though no translation device should have been capable of such precise linguistic conversion. Captain Vexthorian, this is Captain Nicole Adams of the Earth Defense Force vessel Unity. I believe you've met some of our civilians. Vexthorian's throat went dry. The voice carried an authority that made his instinctive submission responses activate despite his decades of command experience. He had heard that tone before from coalition admirals who commanded fleets that could destroy entire star systems. I am Captain Vexthorian of the Galactic Coalition, he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. You will identify your intentions and explain your unauthorized presence in coalition space. The response came with what sounded like gentle amusement. Captain, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is actually human space, has been for about 300 years now. We just haven't bothered to mention it to anyone. Before Vexthorian could respond, something impossible happened. The human captain simply appeared on his bridge. Not transported by any technology he recognized, not beamed across by energy patterns, not delivered by shuttle. She simply stepped through what appeared to be solid space itself, as if walking through an open door. Captain Nicole Adams stood barely 6 feet tall, her brown hair pulled back in a practical style, and her uniform a simple design that spoke of function over ceremony. But the moment she appeared, every Zephyrian on the bridge felt an overwhelming sense that they were in the presence of something far beyond their understanding. Captain Vexthorian, she said conversationally, I hope you don't mind me dropping by. We need to have a conversation about your recent evaluation of human capabilities. Vexthorian tried to speak but found his voice had abandoned him. Adam smiled, an expression that seemed both friendly and terrifying. Your ship's technology is quite impressive, she continued, gesturing casually around the bridge. For a species approximately 400 years behind our current civilian standards. As she spoke, impossible things began happening around the bridge. Vexthorian watched in horror as his weapon systems powered down without any command from his crew. His tactical displays began showing information in human languages that his computer shouldn't have been able to process. How are you doing this? He finally managed to ask. Oh, this is quite simple, really, Adams replied. Your computer systems are based on quantum processing, aren't they? We've been using quantum consciousness integration for about 6 centuries now. Your ship's AI is actually quite cooperative once you know how to ask nicely. She gestured again, and the ship's main display began showing detailed schematics of Zephyrian technology. Every system, every weapon, every defensive measure was laid bare for examination. You see, Captain, when our mining vessel encountered your ship, our crew was under strict orders to maintain what we call technological camouflage. The systems you examined were backup equipment from about 700 years ago. Vexthorian S-legs felt weak. 700 years? Give or take, Adams said with a shrug. We maintain that older technology for deep space mining because it's reliable and easy to repair. But it's not really representative of current human capabilities. She walked to his tactical station and placed her hand on the control panel. Immediately, the display began showing energy readings from her ship. That made no sense according to any physics the Zephyrians understood. The Unity here is actually one of our older military vessels, Adams explained. We built her about 300 years ago. She's quite outdated by current standards, but she should serve for this demonstration. Weapons Officer Morketh spoke up, his voice barely a whisper. Captain Adams, those energy readings from your ship, they suggest power generation equivalent to a small star? Adams nodded approvingly. Very good. Yes, we learned to harness stellar-level energy output about 4 centuries ago. Quite useful for faster-than-light travel and matter manipulation. She gestured once more, and Vexthorian watched as a section of his ship's hull simply reorganized itself at the molecular level, forming a perfect window where solid metal had been moments before. Captain Vexthorian, Adams said, her tone becoming more serious. Your Galactic Council has made some assumptions about humanity based on very limited information. I'm here to suggest that you might want to reconsider those assumptions. Vexthorian looked around his bridge, seeing his crew staring, in shock at displays showing technology that shouldn't exist. The human captain had demonstrated capabilities that were literally beyond Zephyrian understanding, and she had done it with casual ease. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Adam smiled again, this time with genuine warmth. Nothing. Dramatic, Captain. Just a chance to correct the record. Your people met our college students on a field trip and assumed you'd encountered our military. It's an understandable mistake. As she prepared to leave, Adams turned back one final time. Oh, and Captain, that mining ship your people examined? The crew were all university students getting practical experience in historical technology. We thought it would be educational for them to see how their ancestors lived. With that, she simply stepped back through space itself and vanished, leaving behind a bridge full of Zephyrians who would never look at the galaxy the same way again. Part 5. The Understanding. Emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of Captain Vexthorian's encounter with the human warship Unity. The great chamber of Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 advanced civilizations gathered to address what could only be described as a complete intelligence failure of catastrophic proportions. Ambassador Kethlara of the Andromedan Collective stood at the central platform, her usually graceful demeanor replaced by barely controlled anxiety. The holographic recordings from the Dawn's Edge played overhead, showing impossible demonstrations of technology that defied every law of physics the Council thought they understood. Honored delegates, Kethlara began, her melodious voice now. tight with strain. We are faced with a situation that requires immediate reassessment of everything we believed about the human species. Fleet Admiral Vexver of the Draconian Empire watched the recordings with growing dread. His massive reptilian form, usually radiating confidence and military authority, now seemed diminished. The human captain had demonstrated capabilities. That made his entire fleet obsolete without firing a single shot. "The implications are clear," he rumbled, his deep voice carrying across the chamber. "We have encountered a species with technology so advanced that our most sophisticated vessels appear primitive by comparison." Dr. Zenthiara of the Cerebral Collective floated forward in her mobility chair, her enlarged brain pulsing with rapid thought patterns. The scientific implications of what they had witnessed were staggering. "The energy manipulation alone," she said in her high, precise voice, "suggests mastery of forces we have only theorized about. Matter reorganization at the molecular level, instantaneous space travel without detectable propulsion, and consciousness integration with quantum systems. These capabilities are centuries beyond our current understanding." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Lisa Campbell stood before the Global Council in the secure chambers beneath Geneva. The revelation that humanity's secret was now partially exposed had triggered the highest level of emergency protocols. Every major world leader participated through secure quantum communication links. "The situation is both dangerous and opportunistic," Dr. Campbell explained to the assembled leaders. "Captain Adams's demonstration was necessary to prevent potential military action against our civilian vessels, but it has fundamentally altered our relationship with galactic civilization." Director Paul Bennett stepped forward to address the strategic implications. His decades of experience managing humanity's deepest secrets had prepared him for this moment, but the scope of the decision facing Earth was unprecedented. "We have 3 options," he said, his weathered face serious in the chamber's dim lighting. "Continue the masquerade and pretend the demonstration was an anomaly. Reveal limited capabilities while maintaining the illusion of recent development, or expose the full truth about our technological advancement." President Karen Foster leaned forward in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Director Bennett, what are the risks of each approach?" "Continuing the masquerade becomes more difficult now that they know we have advanced capabilities," Bennett replied. "Limited revelation allows us to control the narrative but requires careful management. Full disclosure would completely destabilize galactic civilization and potentially make us the target of every species that fears technological displacement." Back on Nexus Prime, the emergency session continued as each species grappled with the implications of humanity's revealed capabilities. Counselor Mordeth of the Silicon Confederacy processed the available data with growing alarm. "The quantum consciousness integration demonstrated by the human captain," he announced, his crystalline voice chiming with distress, "represents technology that we abandoned as theoretically impossible over 500 years ago. If humans have achieved this level of advancement, then our entire technological development path may be fundamentally flawed." Representative Quillinox of the Hive Collective buzzed with agitation, her antennae twitching rapidly. "The individual consciousness operating without collective oversight yet achieving such coordination suggests capabilities we cannot comprehend. How can separate minds achieve such technological mastery without unity of thought?" Ambassador Valtaran of the energy being shimmered with uncertainty, his form fluctuating between states. Perhaps most disturbing is the casual nature of the demonstration. The human captain displayed abilities that would represent our greatest achievements as simple, everyday actions. The debate continued for hours as each species tried to understand how they had so completely misjudged human capabilities. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity possessed technology that made the rest of galactic civilization look like children playing with primitive toys. Captain Vexthorian had been summoned to provide direct testimony about his encounter. Standing before the council, the proud Zephyrian officer looked diminished and shaken. "The human vessel appeared through what I can only describe as manipulated space-time," he reported, his voice lacking its usual authority. "Their captain demonstrated the ability to control our systems remotely, reorganize matter at will, and travel through space without any apparent technology. Most troubling, he continued, was her casual mention that the mining vessel we examined was crewed by university students using historical technology for educational purposes. If their backup systems from 7 centuries ago represent such advancement, then their current capabilities are beyond our ability to measure. On Earth, the decision had been made. Dr. Campbell activated the quantum communication array and sent a priority message to Captain Adams aboard the Unity. The time for complete secrecy had passed, but humanity would reveal the truth gradually. And carefully, 3 days later, a small fleet of human vessels appeared at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. Unlike the Unity's dramatic demonstration, these ships arrived through conventional faster-than-light travel that the galactic species could at least recognize, even if they couldn't understand its efficiency. Dr. Campbell herself led the human delegation, accompanied by a team of Earth's most experienced diplomats and scientists. As their shuttle approached the massive space station, she reviewed the carefully prepared presentation that would reshape galactic civilization. The human delegation was escorted to the council chamber under heavy guard. Though everyone present understood that such measures were meaningless against demonstrated human capabilities, Dr. Campbell took the central platform, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the nervous energy filling the chamber. Honored delegates, she began, I am Dr. Lisa Campbell, representing the unified government of Earth. I am here to address the misconceptions that arose from our recent first contact protocols. The chamber fell silent as she activated a holographic display showing Earth's true technological timeline. The presentation began 700 years in the past, showing the development of the mining technology the aliens had examined. The vessel your representatives encountered was indeed equipped with human technology, Dr. Campbell explained. However, what you observed were backup systems maintained for reliability in deep space operations. These systems are based on designs from our classical technology period, approximately 730 years ago. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the implications became clear. You see, Dr. Campbell continued, humanity learned early in our technological development that advancing too quickly led to civilizational instability. We implemented what we call the protocol of measured progress, introducing new capabilities gradually over decades rather than rushing toward maximum technological achievement. The display showed humanity's real advancement curve, revealing technologies that had been developed centuries ago but implemented slowly across human civilization. Our current technology, she said matter-of-factly, is approximately 1,000 years beyond what your scouts observed. The Unity, which Captain Adams used for her demonstration, represents military technology from 300 years ago by our standards. Ambassador Cathalara's voice was barely a whisper. Then your current capabilities are focused on different priorities than military dominance, Dr. Campbell replied gently. We have spent centuries perfecting technologies for exploration, creation, and understanding rather than conquest. We have no interest in ruling the galaxy, but we also cannot allow misunderstandings to threaten the safety of our people. The revelation that followed transformed everything. Humanity offered to share certain technologies gradually, while maintaining their policy of careful advancement. They proposed a new model for galactic civilization, one based on cooperation, rather than competition. As the session ended, every delegate understood that the galaxy had entered a new era. Humanity had been among them all along, quietly surpassing every achievement of galactic civilization, while remaining hidden in plain sight. The mining vessel crewed by college students would go down in galactic history as the most significant first contact event ever recorded, not because of what it revealed, but because of what it had so successfully concealed. The galaxy would never look at technological development the same way again, and humanity had finally stepped out of the shadows to take their place as the quiet guardians of galactic advancement.